Hello and welcome to a new episode of the Get Psyched show. This week I'm joined by Chloe Drew. Chloe is a fourth year student at the University of Glasgow and current president of the Glasgow University women's rugby team. I had the pleasure of working with her last season while she was captain and wanted to share her story and the successes of last season. We chat all things about women's rugby, especially at university, creating team environments and her leadership style. I hope you enjoy this episode, and if so, be sure to leave a review or share it with a friend. Thanks. Hi Chloe, how are you?
We're good, thanks. How are you, George?
Yeah, good, thanks. Thank you. Thanks a lot for joining us today for, I think we're on the fifth episode now of the podcast. Chloe, could you give us sort of a bit of a brief overview about who you are, what you do, and a bit about your background as well?
So I am currently in the Glasgow Uni rugby team. Last year I was captain of the team, and then this year I am the president or club captain. And then I'm also on kind of the uni-wide sports committee. And then I'm final year this year of geography degree. So everything's kind of wrapping up in the last few months and then getting ready to go into the big old world of work.
Yeah, super. So, as you said, a fourth year uni student at the University of Glasgow, and competing with women's rugby. So that's how we met, through women's rugby. So women's rugby is sort of growing massively over the last couple of years. Obviously, we saw with the World Cup 2 years ago now, just over 2 years, I guess, 2022. The Six Nations, the Celtic Champions Cup, which is or League, which is happening as well across the UK and Ireland. Could you talk to us a bit about how you got involved in women's rugby?
Yeah, so I never really considered it as an option. When I was growing up, I was a very sporty kid, but I don't know, I think women's rugby just wasn't really on the scene for me. I did a lot of football, swimming, hockey, netball. I was kind of that kid that did everything. And then I think at about 17, I was in my final year of sixth form, and they kind of started like a women's rugby team. And I thought I'll give it a go. Loved it, right from the first few sessions. Um, and then joined like a local women's team near me. But even then, that was quite difficult because you weren't really allowed to play until you were 18. So
Yeah.
I was very much like the young kid on the squad. But they really took me under their wing. I think that's what really got me into it. And then as soon as I came to uni, which was I took a year out after school, so did no rugby, and then came to uni during COVID, but thought I'd join the club anyway. And that's kind of where it all started.
Nice one. What was it about the rugby that sort of caught your interest, or sort of started your love for it? Was it just the environment? Was it the new challenge, or was it the just specific skill sets? What was it about rugby that you sort of enjoyed so much, I guess?
I think I'd got to the point with football where I was getting a bit bored of it. The team I was in wasn't the nicest environment. I was definitely the youngest in the group there, and I think people definitely, it just wasn't my type of team, and the mentality of the team just wasn't what I consider to be a good team. So as soon as I kind of joined a new sport, and a sport that's very focused on, team spirit, all as one, coming together, and like everyone pushing each other to be the best they can be, which rugby is all about, I think I fell in love with it immediately. Um, and yeah, definitely a new challenge. I think as just, again, athletic person, it's quite, I don't know, I think rugby can come quite naturally if you're quite sporty already and you've done a lot of other sports. So it's quite nice to be, oh, you know what, I'm actually all right at this within the first few months, and then kind of pick it up from there.
Yeah, I think that's one of the great things about rugby is that no matter sort of your athletic ability, your size, shape, there's a role in on the pitch for you.
Mm.
So especially if you've already got that sort of athletic background, you'll find a position, and like yourself jumping between flanker and scrum half, like it's quite a change. But you've got
Yeah,
those athletic abilities that you can do that. I guess joining
yeah,
when you
definitely.
when you when you came up to university in Glasgow, and you said you joined the club during COVID, what was that like? Did you get to sort of involve much in rugby, or was it all just sort of like online social stuff, not much playing?
It wasn't great, I'm not gonna lie. I think they did the best of what they could, but Scotland definitely had pretty strict rules with rugby. I think it was even stricter than England. So we weren't even allowed to do touch, let alone anything else. I think we did about a few months of training of just kind of passing the ball around, and then we'd be off for a few months. We'd go back into lockdown, try again. And a lot of the new people didn't, they didn't really feel that included, didn't really join the team. But I thought I'll stick at it. There's not much else to do. And then kind of got closer with some of the older girls, took me under their wing, and that was really nice. But yeah, first year wasn't great. There wasn't any matches or anything like that. But we did what we could do.
Yeah. And then going into second year, was that when you got your first role on committee as well?
Yeah, I think they were quite conscious looking back to get some new people onto committee because obviously no one had really joined in that COVID year, and I was the only fresher at that point that was really coming to any training. So I think that we need to get someone on committee, otherwise this club's going to die out. So I think they really pushed me to join, and I got stuck with travel, which is an all right committee position, but it was definitely kind of the grunt work, which was fine. And it was nice to be part of the committee and be part of the team. You just feel like you're making a bit more of an impact.
Yeah. And then it was at the following season that you then became captain.
Yeah, it was the following year. I moved from travel to captain. And second year, I think that was the year before you joined the club. It was a very, very difficult time. I think the club before COVID was very high standard, and they'd won the Scottish League on repeat probably about 4 or 5 times in a row. So they got pushed down into the English, like North Premiership League, against some very good high standard unis. And then obviously they all graduated, left, and then everyone remaining had to stay in that league. So we were traveling down to England kind of every other weekend, playing games while also playing in a local Sunday league. So it was difficult. It was difficult to get the numbers together. We were kind of begging people to play. We were getting beaten like 60, 70 nil some weeks after travelling all the way to kind of Loughborough and Nottingham and places. Um, Obviously, ended up losing that league, which was fine, and then got booted back into the Scottish League, which was the league that I was captain for. So it was a much nicer environment, I think, for that year.
Yeah, we'll come on to sort of last season as well and going
Mm.
forward of your year as captain. But I think a point about that year where you were traveling so much is the funding varies massively across universities and across different sports. It sort of depends what position and what history it has in a university. So the traveling that you were doing for the funding you were on was just like mind blowing for some people would see it.
Yeah, no, it was crazy, and you could see. I mean, it was really nice to see how much funding makes a difference. And like England Rugby had put so much into these unis, and places like Newcastle, you could see their facilities were incredible, like Loughborough, incredible. And what you get out of that is what you put into it. But unfortunately, the uni for us wasn't at the point where we were doing that. And obviously, it's a long-term plan. But it's nice to see that the direction it is going in, and it is coming a long way. But just wasn't quite for us at that point.
Yeah, yeah, and we'll come on to that sort of looking forward as well. I guess coming into your captaincy position, what was it that sort of pushed you to putting yourself forward for this position and sort of saying that yeah, I want to be a leader in this team.
Um, I don't know. I think it was a difficult decision because I knew how much work it was going to be, but I think I loved the team so much and I put so much into it, and I think I had a lot of ideas of where it could go and where I wanted it to go, and a lot of people, kept encouraging me. You'd be great, you'd be ideal, you should go for it, you should go for it, and then it kind of ended up being that I was the only one that really went for it. Um, so ended up getting it, but it was really fun year, and I really enjoyed it, and I think I learned so much from being captain of that team that I never would learn in a normal year of playing rugby. Difficult, but very rewarding at the same time.
Yeah. And have you always been sort of a natural leader, and that's something that's come quite easily to you, or was this captaincy quite a daunting thing and quite a big step up?
Um, I don't know, I haven't really ever considered whether I've been a natural leader, but probably to an extent. I was always like captain of the house team at school,
Yeah.
or the local football club when I was younger. I normally was captain. So maybe looking back, I have got some natural leadership tendencies, but I really considered myself to be a leader. But at the same time, I know I'm very gobby and loud on the pitch. So I guess that comes with the leadership stuff.
Yeah. I think they say like 1 in 4 people have sort of very natural leadership tendencies. So, from my experience working with you, Chloe, I think you do fall fall into that, which is brilliant and works the position you're in. Um, Obviously, last season was a massive success for the club. I guess off the back of quite a difficult season as well with all the travelling. Could you just
Mm.
sort of explain to listeners a bit about what happened last season? So this is the 2022-23 season we're talking about sort of what happened, the success, and I guess we'll come on to Varsity as well after it as well.
So we kind of had to start the year with some quite difficult decisions. We were obviously put down into that league in Scotland, which is against unis like Edinburgh, Stirling, St Andrews, which is all quite local, which was nice travel wise. And then we also were still in the Sunday League, which I ended up having a nice, healthy argument slash debate with the current president about how I think we should take ourselves out of that league. Our numbers were really low, and playing 2 games a week, in my opinion, was just crazy. Like professional rugby players don't play 2 games a week, and if they do, they have a lot more support, and they're not, doing a lot else on the side. So I thought quality over quantity. Let's rebuild this club. Let's put ourselves in a position where people want to join us, and we're not begging them to play, and we're not forcing them to get injured from playing too much. So we ended up coming out of the Sunday League as well, and we kind of focused all of our efforts onto that Bucks League on the Wednesdays against unis. And it was a difficult start for the first few months, but it definitely worked out in the end, and we did end up winning it, which was really nice, and it was a really good end to the year. And then we also had Varsity, which was a very big game. And I think those 2 things, as well as much better kind of team environment and atmosphere and publicity, really meant that we could recruit a lot more people and kind of make the club a lot more successful in that way. Because without good numbers, it's really difficult to push.
Yeah. So just I guess for people who maybe aren't as clued up on their rugby, so a team on a Wednesday it'll be 15 players to start, and then you'll have I think it's up to 7 substitutes, so 22 players involved, and then
Yeah.
maybe a couple that are just sort of there just in case there's any late dropouts. So you can have up to 25 players ready for a Wednesday, who majority can all be
Yeah.
involved. And then a Sunday as well, which is 3-4 days later, as well as 2 training sessions and gym
Mm-hmm.
sessions in between. You really need a club size
Mm-hmm.
of around 50 regular players, which the numbers just weren't there at
Yeah.
that point. So to drop down to just 1
Yeah.
match a week and really focus on that was, I guess, proved a good idea looking back. And a really successful season after losing the first 2 games in the league, able to come back and win it. What would you say were your biggest lessons as captain in that season, from whether it's on the pitch with leadership or whether it was off the pitch with dealing with things? What were your biggest lessons that you took away from that?
I think the first 2 games I really struggled with. I knew we were the better team in both of them. And then we just weren't really performing. We weren't doing well. We weren't kind of executing anything we'd be working in training. We had to sit back and go, why is this not happening? And I think it really came down just to our self-belief and like the mental skills side of it. And we had the skill and we had the fitness, and we were good players, but we just weren't really coming away with results. And I think part of that was that maybe we didn't really believe in ourselves after being beaten, I think, every game in a row for a whole season. And it was difficult to believe that we could win. And a lot of the teams we were playing against did see us as a big threat coming down from the English league, thought we were going to be really good, and obviously played really well against us. And we weren't matching and we weren't playing to the level we should be. And I think as soon as we, turned focus away from the games and focus more on how we want to be as a team, how we want to operate, how we want to deal with each other, how we want to deal when things get difficult, things started to go a lot better. And especially the mental skills sessions that you did. I think that was quite a big turning point.
It's a good point you made off the back of a season of losing, though. That just belief that you can win is sort of what you need. And
Mm.
from those first sort of couple months in training sessions, the quality was there, the squad depth was there, everything was there.
Mm.
As you say, it was maybe just that belief. And they talk about sort of on your road for improvement, a plateau of latent potential, they call it. So sort of you expect everything to be linear and improvement, but there's a sort of dip for a bit where you see no improvement, and then suddenly it appears. And I think that's what happened coming into that third game and onwards. It's really interesting. Looking at Varsity as well, which last season was the very first year that women's Glasgow Varsity got to take place. Could you just to explain sort of what that is and what it involves?
So it kind of runs the same as like the traditional like Oxford Cambridge Varsity, based off that idea. So the main unis in Glasgow are Glasgow Uni and then Clyde. So the men have been doing varsity for, I want to say, about 7 years now. Might be a bit less, but we've never had the opportunity to do one. And then from the start of the year, I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to do a varsity. It's not fair that we're not doing it. Strath are an amazing team as well, and it would be a great game. And it would be amazing to get women's rugby out there a bit more. So I kind of pushed that. Finally, they all agreed that this could be a great idea. So we got it played on the 24th of February. And it was a terrifying night, but it was a lot of fun. And it ended up in a win, which was incredible. And that was kind of a great end to a good season, I think.
Yeah, and do you wanna mention where it was played as well?
So it was played at Scotstoun Stadium, which is where Glasgow Warriors play, which was incredible in itself. You were just playing on that pitch, the size of it. I could not expect it was going to be that big. We were like trying to pass the ball out of the line out. I remember thinking it is not normally this far. And the pitch was really bouncy, everything. It was really good fun. And hearing everyone screaming for you and cheering your name, it was good.
Yeah, what I think is important to say as well is that the fans were very in attendance of a match as well. So there was great crowds, great support for both sides. So as well as a big occasion of winning a trophy on the line and then getting to play at Scotstoun, you had fans, family all there supporting you and cheering you. What was the obviously you said it was a very nervous night and build up. It was a Friday night game, so normally it's a Wednesday game or a Sunday, so Friday night's slightly different. What was your week sort of in the build up to that? How were you feeling? Were you stressed about the game or the organisation? Because obviously you're involved a lot in that. So where was your mind at in that week building up to it?
I think I was a bit all over the place looking back. I was definitely stressed about the organisation. I think there's a lot more that goes into these things than a lot of people expect and realise. Um, just small things like we wanted to have like a local youth club doing kind of a guard of honour as we ran out, just coordinating all of that, making sure everyone knew where they needed to be. That felt like a lot of work. We wanted like the changing room all decorated, and it was really lovely. A lot of the girls who were playing and not playing made signs and wrote kind of inspirational quotes about each other, printed out pictures, decorated the changing rooms, which was great. And I think it was a really nice idea to read that before the game. But even that, coordinating, having someone even allowed in the change room before the game just seemed a lot more difficult than it needed to be. But looking back, all worth it. And it was a really good night. And it was really nice to have like family and friends there, as you said. I think my mum never really watched any of my games. So for her to come up and like see how far rugby's come, I think she was terrified I was going to get injured the whole time, but I think she did enjoy it in the end. It was really nice to be able to share that with families and friends.
Yeah, I think what's important to remember is that as well as you guys all being players, and that's your sort of main thing for being involved in rugby, but you do all this organisational stuff. Committee has to sort out transport, as you say, organise all this varsity stuff. who you want to be there, organise fixtures, matches, referees. There's no sort of overarching body that does that. It is the players at the end of the day. Like a match like this requires all this input and effort, but that's not someone else doing that. So on top of being a uni student focusing on the game, you've got all this to worry about as well. So I think it's just amazing what it did and the day that it was. Can you talk a bit about sort of, I
Mm-hmm.
guess, the outcome and the other side of it? So after Varsity, what has that benefited the club? Has that done any positivity? How are things going forward now off the back of last year?
Yeah, so I think my main thing coming into captain was, I want a really successful season. Obviously, I want to do well and I want everyone to enjoy it. But at the same time, I think this is kind of our make or break season. The year before was really, really difficult. We'd lost a lot of people. Our numbers were really low. And I knew we had Varsity and we had an incredible opportunity to recruit a lot more people, get a lot more people into rugby and, hopefully offer a more development side, which we didn't really ever offered before. It was kind of just the first team and that was it. And coming into rugby and that being your only option, playing quite, a high level was quite, I think, daunting for a lot of people and it did scare a lot of people off. So I really did want to start kind of a development team or a second team. So committee really pushed and they were incredible. Doing a lot of publicity around Varsity, like telling their stories, how they got into rugby. And then we ran like a development session. I think it was about 2 days afterwards that weekend that we had a lot of numbers for. And we just kept pushing, kept pushing. We've got a development side, we're hiring more coaches, we're doing this, we're doing this. And then coming forward to this year, it's completely paid off. It's been incredible. We've got a second team started. They played in the SRU's Aspiring League this year. They did really well. And they've got like their first cup run game on Sunday, which is super exciting. They've got 4 games in the pool, and if they do well, they might make it to Murrayfield and play in the final. I really hope they do. But we're at the position now where we're fielding 2 teams, which is incredible, and I think more than I probably could have hoped for. And our recruitment this year has been, I think we're probably sitting at about 40%, second, third, fourth, fifth years, and about 60% freshers, which is
Wow.
crazy, but it's been really exciting and really good.
Yeah, I guess it's just proof of the legacy that was built, I guess, on part of Varsity, but all the promotion, all the hard work that you've put into the club is showing now. And it's a shame that you're having to, or you'll be moving on quite soon because all this hard work is like you only get to enjoy it for a wee bit. Um,
Mm.
it's been great to see as well that you will be playing Varsity again this year. So can you just talk to me a bit about what's coming up and I guess give a wee promotion about it as well?
So it is on the 8th of March at Scotstoun Stadium, 5:15 kickoff, I believe. Against Strathclyde, hoping to defend our title, but Strath are really pushing and improving so much as well. And I think it's going to be even more competitive, which I think is, it's amazing to see both teams really pushing because even 4 years ago, Strath were barely pushing and forming teams, and now they're a really competitive, good club, and they've got great players, and some of them are playing in the Warriors squad as well. So they're doing really well for themselves. So it should be a really good game. And yeah, please come down if you can and watch and support. The men are playing after us, so it should be good fun. And then we've got one game after that against St Andrews, which is kind of our biggest opponent. And if we can win that, then we can win the league again. But touch wood, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, wicked. And I guess just looking at women's rugby as a whole, as I said earlier, it's one of the biggest growing sports in the UK at the moment. How do you see the next sort of 5, 10 years going for not just at Glasgow, but women's rugby in general across the UK and across the world?
Mm-hmm. uh, I mean, the sky's the limit. I think it's proven in the last 3 years how much a bit of funding and a bit of investment can go. And looking at, like, only really know most about Scotland and Scotland unis, the disparity between funding and what's available. is really upsetting. And a lot of the games we played last year, I came away, yeah, we got a big win, 100-0, but it wasn't an enjoyable game to play. I remember one against Napier, we turned up, they didn't have a coach. They were put on the public park because their uni didn't give them pitches. The park was full of litter, which we had to go around and pick all the rubbish off before we started. They didn't have any goalposts. The referee turned up, half an hour late, which obviously isn't his fault, but I think the organisation and the support from the uni wasn't there. They didn't have any changing rooms. We were getting changed on the bus, and they were expected to play and perform and do well, while the men's club had 3 or 4 teams. So the level was just not there. And I mean, even on Wednesday we played Stirling and ended up beating them 109-0, which is just not the kind of scores you want to play. You want competitive, good games of rugby. And I think we need a lot more investment, a lot more funding for that to happen, especially in Scotland.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's really positive looking at it from a top-down approach where there's a lot happening at sort of the top levels of a game, whether it be with the announcement of the British and Irish Lions, the international sort of sides, Scotland and the leagues at the top level in Scotland and Ireland and Wales. But yeah, we need this bottom-up approach as well, where universities is a big way that young women are getting involved in rugby. So make sure that there's the right funding in there to allow for facilities and coaching and things like that. And as well in the community game, there's plenty of funding there that we're not just having success at the top, but we're building the next pathways as well for people.
No, definitely. I think we're sitting about 70 members at the, which is, I think that is probably one of the largest clubs of our age category, definitely in the area. And all these people are getting in, or 50-60% are probably starting rugby at uni. So we're offering like a real pathway in, but we're not really getting that support back from the SRU. Whereas I think a lot of clubs, not universities, are getting a lot more support. And I think unis is a really good way to go, especially with women's rugby. It's the way that most people get into women's rugby. So I think just a lot more support for unis would be ideal going forward.
Yeah. Yeah, because I think it's important to remember as well, universities already have the processes and the clubs and the systems and the facilities, all that's in place. It's just giving that extra funding so it can grow then. Whereas in certain club situations, it might not be at the same level. So I think it's about remembering who you're getting as well, but you're getting people come to university who are committing 4 or 5 years to that place. So it's not just 1 year of funding that disappears. It's continual years of funding, but hopefully then can go on to, if they go back to their community or to another place, they're taking those skills, that love for rugby elsewhere. I guess moving on to a bit more around your leadership as well. So obviously you were captain last season and have become president of the club this year, as well as a role with the GUSA Council, so the Glasgow University Sports Association Council. Could you talk firstly a bit about that change from captaincy to presidency, what that's like, and sort of the roles you have to do as president of a university sports club?
So yeah, I moved to president in September time, and the vice captain last year moved into the captain position, which was really exciting. And I knew how good she was going to be, and she's really come into her own, which is really nice to see. And she's done really well. But I think the first game, I think everyone pulled me over on the side, or I think Zoe pulled me over in the end, and she was like, "Chloe, you need to shut up. It's not your turn anymore." Like, yeah, you're right. So I've needed to learn to shut up sometimes. I'm very much an admin role now. I don't have, I could have say on the pitch, but it's not my job anymore. And my side is the admin, which can be a bit boring, and the discipline, and dealing with forms and conduct and contracts and constitution changes, which is as exciting as the pitch, I'm sure. But yeah, I needed to learn to take a step back.
I think it's a good point, Mo, and the fact that you're very sort of self-aware about it is such a positive sign, because I'm sure there'll be a lot of people who have done a sort of similar transition to yourself, but can't let that go and maybe can't give that room for other leaders to grow. So the fact, of course, it's going to be a transition. It's not going to happen in one game. You build up a season of building those skills of leadership to then suddenly go, right, I'm going to shut up for 80 minutes isn't easy.
Mm.
But the fact that you know what you need to do, and you're giving that space for other people to step into that leadership is such a good way, and a way of building a sustainable club. As well as your sort of role in presidency, you were successful in getting onto GUSA Council. So could you talk a bit about what your role is, and so what you do, and what actually GUSA Council is?
So GUSA Council is, as you said, the Glasgow University Sports Association. So it's kind of the student representative body of the whole of the sports association. Um, so all clubs, I think there's 52 clubs in GUSA. So it's a lot more teams, a lot more people. There's a big student population, and sport is a big part of Glasgow Uni, I would say. So I think my reason for going for it was I'd kind of I'd done a lot with the rugby club, and I was really proud of how far that had come. But I knew to make kind of a bigger difference to student experience, I'd need to step a bit further and go on something like Goose Council, where they have more of a say and more influence on the whole student body. Um, and yeah, that was my main reason for doing it. And like women's rugby we'd always kind of kept to ourselves within sport at Glasgow. We'd never really been part of the main clubs, and I wanted to change that. I think it's proved successful, and we've been able to do a lot more. And from being kind of part of the wider student community rather than keeping to ourselves, um, we've been able to do a lot more. So hopefully it's been successful, but balancing the two has been a little bit challenging at times, and knowing when sometimes I need to put more priority on one and sometimes I need to put more priority on the other one, has been a bit more difficult. But I think I'm very glad I did it. It's been a really fun year.
Yeah, good stuff. Could you sort of describe what your role is on GUSA Council, and what you're sort of responsible for overseeing?
So I'm called the Health and Performance Convener. So there's a group of students who are the performance athletes, and they're supported by a bursary scheme. So it's kind of like overseeing them, and you have to look through all their applications with the support of the uni as well. It's not just me, but kind of helping to look through all the applications, and picking who's going to be a sports bursars, because obviously there's so many people that apply, but a very limited pot of funding. And then throughout the year, just kind of checking in with them if they need anything. But the uni's putting a lot more investment, and they've actually hired someone who is the performance, um, like that's his job, performance
Yeah,
athletes. So they're really pushing performance sport a lot better, which is really exciting. And then it's kind of like the health side is they say like promoting a healthier and active lifestyle. So I'm quite free in what I can do in that aspect. But just like a few of the things I've done this year was I started an Empower Hour, which was an hour in the gym in Studio One, which is a separate room where anyone who's female identifying could go into that room for an hour. It was on a Sunday, 3 till 4, and like work out with a PT. Like I just think the gym can be quite an intimidating space and puts a lot of people off from working out. A lot of people don't really know what to do. So it was kind of hoping that more people would use that time and feel a bit more comfortable to use it. And then we did a lot of stuff during Women in Sport Week, which was really fun. I tried to share a lot more stories about people from the student community that have done a lot within sport, and some very inspiring stories. A lot of people at Glasgow have been really successful, especially within sport. So it's been nice to be able to know more about that and share their stories. And then, yeah, kind of just like the general workings of the council and helping them out with that. But elections are in a month or a month and a half, so that role is nearly actually over, which is quite sad. But I'll be excited to see what the next year of Goose Council do.
yeah. good to hear. And I think the point you make about sort of sharing the stories of people involved in Glasgow and what's going on is really important. That people can put sort of faces to things that are happening, because it feels a connection. It's not just sort of an overarching organization or team. It's there's actual people to involved in that, and you can speak to those people. I guess looking as well, like for
Mhm.
example, with your varsity, where you're able to, you were sort of a face of it, the promotion, and everyone starts recognizing your face on campus from a promotion of it. So it's there's a face, there's a person to these teams. There's not just like an organization that feels completely unattainable or you can't get involved. So that's good to hear. Um, from I guess your leadership opportunities as well. You've been involved in so much while at university through sport. What would you say is your biggest takeaway from doing all these leadership opportunities in sport? What's the one thing that you've gone, this is what I've learned, this is the thing I've taken away, or this is what sort of changed how I see things?
Um, I think I've learned that people are complex, and I think I've probably learned a lot of interpersonal skills. I think you, I think when you're younger, you probably just think everyone probably acts in the same way that you do, and you're like, this is the way that things are done. I don't understand why people aren't doing it that way. And as you work with more people and you're working in this team and as a group, you realize that you really need to understand how people work and what makes them tick, what makes them successful, how to realize when they're having a low day and a bad day and how you can support them in that way, when they're having a good day and how you can be happy with them in that way. And just realizing that everyone is difficult and everyone is complex and everyone has their own needs and desires and wants, and you can't just expect people to go along with you because you're in the leadership position. You need to understand that everyone is unique and different in their own way, and that is kind of the beauty of working in a team, working in a group, bringing in so many different ideas and types of people. I think rugby especially has so many different amazing personalities and characters, and it's such a big squad and a big team that you really need to understand everyone's to make it successful.
And as well as all the leadership stuff, obviously you're doing your degree in geography, which you'll be graduating this year. What, I guess, going on from everything you've done over the last 4 or 5 years, what do you hope to sort of go and do next? What do you see as your next step?
Yeah, I'm undecided on the next step. I really hate that question. I think I've been so busy at uni, which is my fault, but I haven't really sat down to think about the next step yet. Um, I think I'd like a few months off, calm down and chill it out, and take some time to think about what I want to do. But I'd like to stay in Glasgow at least for a few months afterwards. I've been away my second year summer and my third year summer. Like I was away traveling for 3 months, I think, for both of them. So I haven't really spent much time in Glasgow in the summer, and that's the best time of year to be here. So I think I need to make the most of a Scottish summer one year, and then kind of go from there. I think masters is still on the cards, but not 100% sure what, and I'm not prepared to rush into it just yet. Um, it'd also be nice just to get a regular routine and doing a bit of work, and kind of seeing what I enjoy. So I'm not 100% sure on that one. I'm sorry.
Yeah. No, no, fair enough. That's good. I think it's a very sensible sort of approach to it. And as you say, summer in Glasgow is literally the best time, and it's when all the students go. It's such a shame. So I think that's completely fair enough. Do you think I know you maybe don't have an answer, but do you think you'd be interested in going down a sport route, whether it's sports development or that sort of idea, or do you think you'll go back towards your geography stuff?
Um, I think geography is a difficult one because it doesn't really lead into a set career. It gives you a lot of good skills, but um, people go in so many different directions. I think we had a careers talk in a lecture the other day, and it was, geography gives you so many options, um, so many skills, but there's not one path to be going down, which is exciting, but a little bit nerve wracking. I think the sport route, I've definitely considered it. I've really enjoyed the development side of sport. Um, and it'd be nice to, continue like the skills I've learned from the rugby club and keep that going. But at the same time, I'm undecided. I don't know whether to sometimes quit while you're ahead. I've had an amazing time at uni. I've enjoyed it so much. I've loved the sports side of it, and maybe go into something else or continue with it. I'm not sure.
Yeah. No, fair enough. And at the end of the day, you've got those skills, and they'll be transferable into anything you do. So, I guess that's the most important thing. I guess just to go on the last sort of topic is about sort of student life and having the balance. So, how have you
Mm-hmm.
found this balance between doing so much extra stuff with it, with sport, as well as your studies? Have you got sort of ways of managing it, whether it be with time, or has it been a skill you've sort of developed over the last few years?
I think I'm still yet to crack the balancing skills, I'll be honest. I don't know. I think I've been so lucky that I've had such supportive friends around me, and the club committee has always been full of people that I'm really close to. So when I haven't quite been able to do something the way I've wanted it to be done, I've been, they've picked my slack, and I've been very grateful for them. But in the same way, I've tried to repay those favors. So being surrounded by very supportive people has been, I think, my key to success. Um, but yeah, I'm still haven't cracked the balancing act. I'm still doing those late nights sometimes to get those essays in. But that is part of the student lifestyle, I think. And hopefully, as I get older, I will be better at balancing. But yeah, sometimes things have had to take more priority. I've had to miss those training sessions sometimes because I've just really not got it right on a deadline. And I've had to cram the library for a few hours. My dissertation that was handed in a month ago, that was quite a stressful month getting that in at the end. But when some things have to take more priority, sometimes it all comes around in a circle, and eventually you hope that everything gets done on time, which it normally does.
Yeah,
But yeah, I
I
can't
think the
really
point.
help on the advice for that one.
No, I think it's just being having an honest sort of view what it's like, and I think the point you made earlier about just having a routine for a wee bit is really rings true with students, because you're in 10-week semesters, and every week there's another event, there's something else on, there's something different coming up. So having that
Mm.
routine, it could be 10 weeks, but it's a crazy 10 weeks. I mean, you've got off time, and then there's exam time. So your life is sort of constantly changing between different timetables, I guess. Do you have sort of a way of when something's submitted, or when you just need a break, of just sort of switching off, getting away, or is it just sort of you stay in the zone until everything's done and then you can relax?
I think I'm a very one thing at a time person. I can only think, right, I need to do this one job and then we'll move on to the next one. I'm very bad at doing multiple things at once, I think. Um, but at the same time, I know I've signed up to do these jobs and I know they need to be done. Um, so I try and do them without complaining as much as possible. But also, it is only uni sport. It's not the end of the world. And, I say that to my committee as much as I can. If you can't do something, that is fine. It's just a volunteer position. No one's going to die. This is not the end of the world. And we'll pick up each other's slack and we'll try and do the best that we can do. And if you need a night off, take a night off. Like if you need a game off, take a game off. It's just not worth it. Um, I have a lot of friends outside of rugby, which I think have been a saving grace. And I never talk rugby with them, or I try to never talk rugby with them. They'll probably say differently that I don't shut up about it, but I try and keep my different groups of friends kind of separate, and enjoy the time that I do have with friends when I do have it, because it's not probably as much as I would want because I'm busy doing other things. But yeah, just trying to make, I don't know, my time with people as valuable as it can be when I'm with them, and then move on to the next thing
Yeah.
because it can only do one thing at once.
No, fair enough. I think you've maybe got it more sussed out than you realise, and the fact that you're able to do so much, get so much done, is showing of how these sort of things have naturally fallen into place with how you need to do things. So it's really good. We've covered lots so far, Chloe. from sort of women's rugby with Glasgow and sort of everything you've achieved over the last couple of years to your leadership as well, and then sort of a student life balance. University and the chance to go and get your degree and I guess move out for a lot of people is such a unique and in some ways once in a lifetime experience that you get to do usually when you're young, and this chance of independence and to learn so much. What would be your advice for a young person that's maybe just about to go or has just got to university and doesn't know how to make the most of it, I guess? What is your advice for someone trying to make the most out of their university experience?
I think I was really shocked when I came to uni just how many clubs and societies there are. Like, obviously, I went down the sport route, but that is definitely not the only route. I think when they hold those freshers fairs in that first week, definitely go and talk to as many people as possible. Um, I don't want to put a number on it, but there must be hundreds, if not thousands, of societies and clubs offering just about everything. And there's so many different ways to meet people and do different things that you've never done before. Sometimes I regret that I, went down one route, and I've only I've done rugby as much as I've loved it and loved every second. It is a sport that I did before uni. Should I have pushed myself out of my comfort zone and done something else? Um, who knows? But I would definitely encourage you to try as many things as possible. I've done 2 years of like freshers helping, we call it, and you spend the week kind of going to all the freshers fairs, running the sports taste sessions, like helping on the nights out, and it's really nice and encouraging to speak to all the freshers and see how excited they are about starting the year, meeting all their new friends, like seeing them with their new flatmates, and yeah, I think it's a really, really exciting time, and I would encourage as many people as possible to go and get out there and push yourself out your comfort zone because you don't really know what's going to happen.
Nice one. I love that. I think it's worth remembering a lot of people come from a high school that will be maybe no more than 1,000 people and maybe 200
Mm.
people or 150 people in your age group. And you'll have a sort of small set of friends from that. And then you can go to university in Glasgow where there's 25,000 students or something like that. So if you've not found your people, then you will find people that you get on with.
Yeah, yeah, and
Wicked.
it can be disheartening to start with. I know people can struggle in their first week if their flatmates don't turn out to be the best friends, or they don't find them in their course, or they've tried a team and they haven't liked the environment. It's not worked out, and it can be really difficult to keep trying new things. But there is people out there. There is so many people at Glasgow, and so many different types of people. So you've got to keep trying. I think my advice.
Nice one. Good stuff. Okay, well, look, Chloe, we'll look at wrapping up there. I'd just like to say a massive thank you for sort of everything you've offered, telling the story of the club and your story of your involvement, and I guess all your advice from your experience or sort of uncertainty with a few things. But the honesty is really good to hear, and that you're still in your early 20s and you're not going to have everything figured out. That would be crazy, but you're on your way for learning that and learned so much so far. So massive thank you for joining us today. Yeah, and best of luck for Varsity. I'll make sure there's a link for tickets when they come out as well.